Hello and welcome back. Today we are taking a close, no-nonsense look at the NanoKVM-Desk, the compact KVM over IP gadget that promises full remote BIOS access, remote power control, and a tiny local display, all for a surprisingly small price. Stick around because I'll cover setup, day-to-day use, the quirks the community is talking about, and who this thing is actually for. The box comes with two HDMI cable, the unit itself, some documentations, two USB-C to USB-A cables, and the internal I/O interface along with some pin-out cables for routing to the outside of the PC chassis. Out of the box, the desk feels compact and purposeful. The build quality matches the price. A small aluminum shell depending on the batch, clean cutouts for the HDMI in and out, the Ethernet jack, and the USB-C ports. The NanoKVM-Desk is the desktop variant in the NanoKVM family. Inside, you get an AX630C SoC with dual Cortex-A53 cores, 1 GB of LPDDR4X memory, and 32 GB of eMMC storage. Video capture is done through HDMI input with an HDMI output loop out for pass-through. Typical capture profiles include 4K at 30 frames per second or 2K at 60 frames per second, depending on firmware and host compatibility. On the outside, you have a 1.4 7-inch capacitive touchscreen, a step rotary knob for local control, 1 gigabit Ethernet, USB-C ports for HID and data, a micro SD slot, and options like PoE and Wi-Fi 6, which is what my version came with. Setup is straightforward. Power it with USB-C or PoE, plug the HDMI from the host into the in port, plug the out loop out to a local monitor if you want local pass-through, and connect Ethernet or Wi-Fi. The web UI is the main control surface. Live KVM stream, virtual ISO mounting, serial terminal, and power controls if you add the optional ATX control board. You don't even have to connect the KVM to your Wi-Fi to use it. It has a standalone access point mode, so you can just directly connect to it. This is useful for situation where you need to diagnose a PC without a monitor and you don't have access to the network. This is also how you configure your Wi-Fi access on the KVM. You log into it, then configure it through the UI interface. Very important, change the default admin credentials immediately. Do not skip this. The KVM has pro-class hardware encoding, keeps latency low for administrative tasks. Expect roughly 50 to 100 milliseconds over a well-conditioned network. Perfectly fine for BIOS navigation, OS installs, and command line work, but not for gaming. Virtual ISO and file transfer are supported, but web UI uploads can be slow. Workarounds: transfer images over SFTP, copy them to a micro SD card, or use the device's mass storage mode. The desk exposes a virtual HID device for keyboard and mouse. Some firmware builds also provide virtual mass storage and RNDIS networking over USB. The paste feature here is really a godsend for managing terminals commands. Since you are using a KVM, pasting in the traditional way doesn't work, so that paste option really does help out greatly. The 1.47-inch display plus a small Python app framework let you build basic status widgets using the frame rem at /dev/fb0. Tailscale. Many firmware builds include tailscale for secure remote access without opening ports. That is convenient, but on lower memory variants, tailscale has been less stable. The desk with 1 GB of RAM is usable, but you should monitor it. Other features include powering an LED strip and have it light up in coordination with the color on the monitor. This is a fun feature, but you better make sure the power supply you're using for the KVM has enough juice to support it. Last but not least, the most interesting feature is the AI inference tool use. This feature allows you to connect to an AI agent and have it interact with the computer using the video feed only. This is pretty cool and open up a lot of possibility for automations where command line isn't possible. I would say it's good for running games benchmarks, but the video feed FPS and resolution limitation will make it hard to do. For administrative tasks, the NanoKVM-Desk performs as advertised. Hardware encoding plus 1 gigabit networking gives smooth updates and acceptable latency for BIOS navigation and OS installs on most systems. Capture limits are profile dependent. Factory profiles often cap at 4K 30 or 2K 60, and unlocking higher or non-standard modes can be firmware dependent. But honestly, I use this NanoKVM most of the time on Wi-Fi 6, and it is definitely good enough, and it also makes it ultra portable when you power it with a power bank. You can control the resolutions of the monitor and also tweak the video stream quality using the KVM firmware web interface. It is one of the cleanest layout for a KVM I have seen. 2 practical points to keep in mind. First, not every GPU or motherboard behaves perfectly when the device is connected during boot. Some users have reported display negotiation or boot quirks on specific hardware. Second, large ISO uploads will take time. Plan accordingly for remote installs. Lastly, if you are not a fan of the NanoKVM interface or are just more familiar with the IP-KVM interface, you can simply switch between the 2 OSs in the menus. The Wi-Fi settings and username password does stay intact between the switch, so you don't have to keep resetting it up each time you switch. Just keep in mind that the IP-KVM OS will not support the screen on the KVM and a lot of other features like the AI tool use and LED strip options. The NanoKVM-Desk is best for home lab admins, small server racks, and anyone who needs reliable remote BIOS and OS install capability without paying enterprise KVM prices. Or in my case, I use it to test new hardware without having to plug it into my physical KVM. This allows me to have access to my full desktop tools and also run tests on the remote device. If you want ultra-low latency remote gaming, this is not for you. Buy it if you value incredible price-to-feature ratio for KVM and power control, an open firmware, and an active community that ships improvements, and a compact local display and simple local controls for quick on-desk status. I did pre-order this NanoKVM with my own money, so this review is fully my own experience with it. Pricing depends on options. Expect the desk typically in the range of $69 to $129 depending on Wi-Fi, PoE, and LED strip options. Availability can fluctuate. Check official stores and major resellers and be ready for regional shipping delays. Let's start with the positives. You're getting a lot of KVM capability here for the price. The hardware encoding keeps latency low for admin tasks, and having 1 gigabit networking along with ATX control really expands what this thing can do. Plus, that small local screen and the support for Python user apps are excellent additions. However, there are some trade-offs. The Windows USB secondary screen driver can be a real headache because it's unsigned. Beyond that, the ISO upload and mass storage user experience isn't very polished yet. You might also run into some host compatibility quirks, and keep in mind that the documentation and port labeling have been a bit inconsistent between different batches. If you need low-cost, real remote KVM with power control for a home lab or small server environment, the NanoKVM-Desk is one of the best value propositions on the market right now. It is not perfect. Expect friction points like driver signing on Windows and slow web UI uploads, but there are practical workarounds and an active firmware community that keeps improving things. If this review helped you, like the video and subscribe for more practical hardware reviews. Tell me in the comments what system you'd pair a NanoKVM-Desk with. I read every one of your comments, so I'll try to respond as soon as I can. If you want, I can follow up with a step-by-step Windows driver install and secure boot walkthrough. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.